Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of the International Basketball Podcast. I'm the Red Mamba and will be your host throughout this journey. My fellow participants come from all around the world and you will be able to find us each Sunday on YouTube and on SoundCloud for this unique podcast. As you can guess from the name of our podcast, this will mostly be axed on trying to get a more international view of basketball about and well just get through in this podcast. But first of all, let's each just present ourselves. So guys, go ahead, just tell our auditors who you are and yeah, some particular points about you as a basketball fan.
It's Bench Beast here, and I'm a basketball fan coming from Spain, and my favorite player is Devin Booker.
Gap here. I'm originally from France. Lived half my life in the US though, and favorite basketball player will probably be Kawhi, which makes this season kind of depressing. But you know,
Uh,
stuff happens.
I'm Ancient. I'm from Australia, and my favorite player is LeBron James. LeBron for MVP.
I'm Qwerty, and I'm from the Netherlands. My favorite player will probably be CP3.
Well, as I already said, I'm Bert Mamba. I'm a Spurs fan. My favorite player would probably be Tony Parker, and I'm French while living in Germany. So yeah, that's it for each of us presenting themselves. And so I think we can already start with the first part of this podcast, which will be there each week. And it is a roundtable where we'll have a theme each week, and everyone will just talk about one particular point you want to talk about on the theme. And well, yeah, and this week it is about the biggest disappointments of this regular season. As the playoffs are starting soon, there are many teams which missed the playoffs or got a way too low seed, but also players who disappointed. So I think it's a pretty good time to talk about it. And yeah, guys, I think Benchpiece, you wanted to talk about the Grizzlies, so go ahead.
yeah, in my opinion, the Grizzlies might be the biggest disappointment for me, at least this season. I didn't expect them to go to the playoffs or something like that, but more of the disappointment. I don't like how they treated the team. Marc Gasol should have been traded. He underperformed this season, so now he has lost a lot of value in the market. Same goes with Conley that didn't exceed my expectations and has a really big contract behind. So I don't know. I feel like they're in a really bad situation that it will be tough to go out of it. And yeah, basically the Memphis Grizzlies are right now in a situation of tanking and having players in their prime at the same time. So it's weird.
Yeah. How do you all think about their contract situation? Because like they got Marcus Gasol and Mike Conley on huge contracts.
Not gonna be able
Yes.
to trade Conley. Conley's like untradeable because of his contract.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Gasol contract, the problem is not the amount; it's the length. Because the fact that he's going to be on his last year of his deal makes his value plummet, especially at his age. Because if it means that if you want to trade for him, you also have to give him an extension to make it worth it, and that means that you have to give like a large extension to a 40 to have like a 50-year-old player. Which I mean, he's great, but like that ruins the entire point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and Gasol used to be such a defensive force, and right now I feel like he's kind of lazy in that part. And also in offense, he's not as efficient as you would wish from a inside player. He now stands a lot outside shooting threes, and I don't know. I would rather have like 2015, 2014, Marcus Gasol, and now the current one, which seems like hasn't been great after his injuries.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just follow up. I think, Query, you wanted to talk about OKC?
That's right. Um, After they acquired Melo and Paul George, they some people were saying they were the best team, second best team in the West, but they've only improved their record by one game. Um, and Carmelo Anthony has been very disappointing. I think he's been posting career lows uh, across all stats. Um, I expected him to be like Olympic Melo, just catch and shoot threes, but he hasn't done that at all. And at some point of the season, they were at risk of falling out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they kind of had to like fight back into the playoffs.
Yeah, but I mean, they ended up as a fourth seed, so do you really think it's that
Yeah.
bad?
Yeah, cool.
I think the success of it entirely depends on what they do in the playoffs. If they're able to succeed, it's also really tough because of a matchup they get in the first round, which is probably like as hard as anything else that they could have gone. But because the
We
Jazz
gotta
are
beat the
really,
Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
yeah, but the Jazz are really damn good this year.
I think that everyone
Paul George
expected
is
like
gone.
them not going far in the regular season, but if they are able to go like to the second round or to the conference finals in the playoffs, I wouldn't call it disappointment. I don't know.
They have Houston in the second round though. I highly doubt they can get past Houston.
And
For
do
sure.
you think Paul George and Carmelo will stay, or do you think they are both gone?
Paul George has said he wanted to stay, or something along those lines. I don't know about Carmelo Anthony though.
I don't know
Melo
about
might
Melo,
stay.
but I think Paul George is gone if they like lose in the first round or
Alright.
like if they just get destroyed by Houston. He got to LA.
Yeah, it depends on the playoff success. Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah, maybe you want to talk about your disappointment of the
Yeah.
season?
I had the Bucks because I mean personally I really like Giannis both as a player and like I really like his personality and stuff. Yeah, I expected like so much more from him, especially since so many of the players have had like acceptable years. It's not like they've been injured the whole time. Chris Middleton has actually had a great year. I'm pretty sure he averaged like 20 points per game this year. Jabari Parker was healthy and played decently for the second half of the season. So you'd think they'd be better than a 7th seed, but apparently not. Very luckily for them, they're up against the Celtics, so they have a chance. Who are without Kyrie Irving, so they have a chance of redemption. But they've basically underperformed.
Yeah, what's weird with
Yeah.
them is that like I feel like Giannis and also Milton and Bledsoe wasn't that bad either. Like their individual players weren't that bad, yet as a team they underperformed greatly.
I
fire your
think you could
coach in the middle
blame
of the year.
Jason Kidd for some of that because he hasn't been good at all.
But
Wasn't coaching because he got fired, but
yeah,
Yeah.
since they had the new coach, I think they are 21 and 16 or something like that. Either way, I think that the team still needs to mesh and the chemistry needs to go up. So, I mean, if it's someone's fault, I think it might be the coaching.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still not that sure if firing Jason Kidd was the move, as they didn't really play better without him.
His late game tactics were pretty bad, to be honest. So
Yeah, I haven't watched.
So we're really meant to take the leap this year, and they just kind of stagnated. End of the day, that's really the coach's fault.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I guess.
So, and Ancient, how about you? What's your disappointment of the season?
Oh well, yeah, I also have the Bucks because I mean last season against Toronto, they looked really good, really promising. They pushed them to 6 games, and Giannis had some moments where he just looked like really, really good. And then they finished this season as the 7th seed, and if it weren't for Boston getting destroyed by injuries, they'd probably be looking at a first round exit in like 4 or 5 games. So they've been bailed out by Boston getting injured. The day, it's just a complete disappointment. They really should have been a top 4 seed, and yeah,
Especially with the injuries the East has had. Yeah, I think that everyone expected the Bucks to have that year, that breakout year, and they would
especially
be
with
somewhere around the
adding
top of
Bledsoe.
the East, and it's not been the case. So yeah, it's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah. Especially like when we remember the first weeks of the season, we were a large amount of the community was rooting for Giannis to win MVP, and now he barely entered the playoffs.
Yeah, overhypers like yeah, it always happens. You have one game, but yeah, it's normal.
Started off the season really hot,
Mm.
cooled down.
Well, yeah, and on my end, my big disappointment wasn't a team, but a player, IT. Because like last season, if you remember, he had like his amazing 30 point per game season, missed the fourth quarter, led the Celtics to the conference final. But yeah, I think it was a mix of injuries, him not fitting well in the Cavs system, and yeah, also the bad chemistry in the locker room in Cleveland. I think that all drained him down. And now, like, he's not even at 20 points per game and will by far not get his max contract he was hoping for after his breakout season. So I'm kind of disappointed, especially for him, because it's a player I like. But now it doesn't seem like any team will take a big chance on him and offer him a superstar deal.
He was awful for Cleveland. He was a locker room cancer.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, his stats speak for themselves. He wasn't good neither on the Cavs nor on the Lakers.
I feel bad for him, like because he was expected to be paid big this year because after all he had done, he deserved it. But he's really bad with the hip. He's constantly getting surgery, and in a player that relies so much in absorbing contact, I feel bad for him because it's tough for him. Yeah.
And he probably will never get back to that level he was at last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think he will ever be as good as he was last year. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he definitely seems on the decline. I think we got through each disappointment of the season for us. So let's head over to the second part of this show, which will always be there each week, and it's the debate. Normally, we will always have two, but as the playoffs are starting very soon with the first round, we will be having our two debates. Will be well, one debate or discussion about the first round of the playoffs. And without further ado, let's just jump in, and we'll just start in the Eastern Conference. First seed against eighth seed, so Toronto versus the Wizards. Who y'all got?
Wizards in seven. I'm going with the upset. I know that most people think that the Raptors will take it, but I think that the Wizards are just better.
I don't buy Toronto as like a serious contender, but I think they should be able to get by Washington because Washington just really don't seem to know what they're doing. Like they can't really. They have really bad team chemistry. Like they don't together. Part of that's because Wall was out for a large part of the season, and there was like some debate. They were better with Wall not playing, and I think that's really gonna like everyone's gonna become aware of that during the playoffs, and I think the Raptors should be able to handle them in probably 6 games.
I agree.
Well, I got Toronto too, but I also think that the Wizards will be a very tough matchup, especially because they match up quite well with them, as like they both got a very strong backcourt.
Yeah, but
I
like,
honestly don't like this Wizards team. Like just like the way they play and the chemistry between them. I this Raptors team seems actually really strong. I mean, you don't win 60 games even in the East out of nowhere. So like they usually do choke in the playoffs, but I just can't see them losing in the first round against a team especially against this team.
Yeah, and
I don't think they'll choke this year like they did in previous years because now they have a super good bench and they rely a lot less on Lowry and DeRozan.
well, but Bradley Beal and John Wall are two great players, maybe even as good as backcourt in Larry and DeRozan. And in the playoffs, while Larry and DeRozan are two players that choke or underperform, Bill and Wall have stepped up. Last year against the Boston Celtics, it was such a great series. The Wizards had clearly the worst supporting cast, and yet the series went to 7 games. So I don't know. I feel like the Wizards will have that underdog mentality and go out and win.
But you can't hold the previous years against Toronto, I think, because the system is quite different.
Maybe. I mean, I think that still Toronto will steal 3 games, so it will be such a fun series for sure.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I think
well,
Washington.
yeah, go ahead.
I
Sure,
think
go ahead.
Washington can pull it off, but I just don't think like if they have their chemistry figured it out, I think they probably could beat Toronto. But given that, as I said before, they just really don't know what they're doing as a team, I think Toronto should be able to handle them.
Yeah. So, besides bench piece, we all got Toronto passing the Wizards in a pretty close series, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Games.
No, Raptors in 5.
Oh, okay, not close.
No faith in John Wall.
Well, then let's go on.
Okay.
Second seed versus seventh seed. So, Boston versus Milwaukee. Who y'all got?
I have Boston in 7. With Kyrie Irving out, Milwaukee is probably just as talented, but um, Brad Stevens is too good of a coach to let that happen. I think he can easily adjust to Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Coaching, like a really good coach, is enough to like win a playoff series. Like talent matters, and I think just given that the Bucks will have by far the best player on the court in Giannis, I think it'll still be a tough series because of Brad Stevens and maybe Jason Tatum will go off. But I reckon the Bucks, just because they have the far superior team on paper, I got them in 6.
I have Bucks in 7. Uh, without Kyrie Irving, the Celtics miss, in my opinion, a lot of offensive fluency. Like they're carried by Al Horford, who's a great player, not comparable to Giannis. But then the second two stars are a sophomore and a rookie. You can trust them, in my opinion. in a playoff series to carry to such young players in a high stage against more developed players are Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Giannis. I don't know. I feel like the Bucks, regardless of how good Brad Stevens of a coach is, they will take it.
Yeah, on mine, it's also a close series, definitely, I think. But I got Boston and six simply because, well, the system in Boston is just way better. Also, the chemistry. I don't really see a mentality as a team in Milwaukee, while in Boston, it's just a great group. And also, I think Boston's just so deep with like guys as Monroe, Horford, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, etc., Rozier, that they will be able to pass run rounds. But I don't think they go any further after it.
I agree. Terry Rozier has really stepped up when he replaces Kyrie Irving. So it's interesting to see how he will do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Marcus Smart isn't either though.
Playoffs is a completely different atmosphere. I don't know if Reggie is going to be able to handle being the starting point guard in a high stakes playoff series.
I was thinking, like, considering Boston, if they win or not, this playoffs campaign is only bonus for them. Because as Kyrie and Hayward are out, um, a lot of young players will get responsibilities in the playoffs and will just earn a lot of experience for playoff campaigns to come. So yeah,
I still think the Bucks are just too good for like for a team that has basically Horford
well,
and
I don't
a
think
bunch of young players. Like yeah, but experience is still a thing. This team is built basically on players who have never actually had a deep playoff run. Like the farthest anyone on that roster has got is basically like the second round. What are you gonna do against?
Yes, exactly. You cannot trust a 20-year older to pass a superstar in the game like Giannis. Like it's impossible. Like
who on the Bucks went further than the second round in the
No
playoffs.
one, but here's the thing that doesn't matter since they actually have like the coaching is canceled out by the fact this team is so
Jason
you
Terry.
in order to be properly coached, you have to be focused, you have to be to concentrate, you have to be able to like stay calm in all situations. Otherwise, the coaching is basically worthless. That kind of thing doesn't come when you're stressed out. The argument that I'm making is not that the Bucks are more experienced. It's that both of them are inexperienced, but that hurts the Celtics much more than it actually hurts the Bucks because of them relying on tactics and stuff like that much more.
Yeah,
By
I
the
guess
way,
you.
the Bucks have Jason
I agree
Terry.
completely.
I guess you have a point, Gab, because of course you have to coach Giannis less than you have to coach Tatum or Brown offensively. I think we can go on with the next series in the East, and that'll be about the third-seeded 76ers against the sixth-seeded Heat. Who would you all take for the win?
I have Philadelphia in 6. In my opinion, it's a really interesting series to watch. We have such a talented core in Philly with Simmons and Bede. They lack experience, but the Heat don't have it either. So I don't know. I feel like the Sixers are too talented for not advancing. So the Heat will be somehow able to snap 2 games.
I'm probably biased on this, but I have the Heat in 7 games. I think it is, and apart from Reddick, the Philly is an extremely young team. Meanwhile, apart from like Bosch, the Heat's current roster is almost exactly the same as the 2016 squad, which went to the second round, nearly beat Toronto. I think Eric Spoelstra is a very good defensive coach and he's going to know how to down, but at least slow down Simmons and be able to like bruise his complete lack of a jump shot and like will probably try to make him take jumpers.
They have the personnel to slow him down as well with James Johnson and Justice Winslow.
I mean, it ain't enough anymore. Like, I feel like Hassan Whiteside has regressed mentally to being able to stop Embiid, and I don't think that a player like Johnson can stop Ben Simmons. He's too good.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
right. But there were reports coming in that Embiid is most likely to come back for game 2, so he will miss one game. But I just got a question. Who do you think on the Heat will be able to guard Simmons as well as Embiid? Because I still don't really trust Whiteside in defending as dominant bigs as Embiid.
James Johnson and Justice Winslow. They don't have the height, but they're both very strong, and I think the two of them, like in rotation, will be able to stay in front of Simmons and shut him down completely because he's too good for that. But to be able to slow him down enough that he's not going to be able to do what he wants on like every possession, really, really leaving him open and just really trying to get Philly to make him shoot. As for Embiid, that's a little harder because while Whiteside's a good rim protector, he's not that great as an actual defender. But if you actually look at Embiid and Whiteside's matchups, seems to show up. Maybe not on defense, but especially on offense, he always seems to show up against Embiid. They have a little bit of history. I think a couple months ago they were having like I think
Yeah, that was great.
if Whiteside can show up for the series, they will be able to cancel each other out.
Wouldn't it be better to put Bam Adebayo on Embiid for the Heat?
Nah, but
And yeah, he's really good and obviously much better than Whiteside. He's I'm not sure. He's either like 6'7" or 6'9". He's pretty undersized, and I think Embiid would be able to handle Bam on Embiid when Bam is in the game. No, I wouldn't like to start Bam over Whiteside.
I'm just going to say one thing that is quite scary about the Sixers. 3-point shooters, they have a ton. Robert Covington, Redick, Bellinelli, Saric, Bayless, Ilisova, like they are that deep outside shooting that I feel like, well, you can stop Simmons, he kicks it out, but there will always be a shooter open that can break the game.
And
But
Well,
Really?
yeah, they've probably got the edge shooting wise, but that's not even sure because like Miami also has like Olynyk, Ellington, Dragic who can eventually hit a few 3-pointers. I think both teams space the floor very well, so the game might actually be decided on the inside, and there I just give Philly an enormous advantage through Embiid, but also Simmons who can just drive on anyone pretty much.
I love how we're talking about guys that can supposedly stop Simmons because we're strong, the same way that we talk about guys that can stop like LeBron, like PJ Tucker and DeMar Carroll, who actually has stood no chance, and we still call them like LeBron stoppers, same way we say these guys can stop Simmons. Honestly, I really like the Sixers team just as a whole. It's fun to watch. Like I'm pretty close to Philly where I live, so I get spammed with their games every time I turn on the TV. So I've watched them a couple times. Also, Whiteside has basically not been playing this year, especially late in the year. He's actually very frustrated about it. I don't think he's going to be able to stop. Like, I don't care how good of a defender he is. If he's on the bench, he can't stop Embiid. That's just a fact. You can't defend from the bench.
Man's got jokes.
And I don't see anyone that can genuinely stop Simmons. I don't think it's when you watch him play, he's actually he's a very fluid player. He doesn't purely rely on athleticism, so I don't think it's going to be that easy to actually stop him and force him to take bad shots. I honestly see the Sixers winning this series in like 6 games, just out of respect for how good of a team, how cohesive the Heat can be.
We talked about experience in the previous series, but Spoelstra is a veteran coach, and Brett Brown hasn't coached a playoff team. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Heat in general are way more experienced. So I still have Philadelphia in 7, but I think it should be close.
Yeah, that coaching point is good. Like I'm checking and no, Brett Brown hasn't coached in the playoffs, but it's still like it's not that the Heat as the roster itself is that experience. Dragic didn't play that much in the playoffs. Same with the Linux, same with Whiteside. So yeah, maybe in coaching wise they win, but the talent in the court is what makes the point. So I have Sixers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got Philly in 5 simply because they're just by far the better team. Sure, Miami is more experienced. They're probably better coached, and well, like even defensively, Philly is better. Embiid is the top 3 defender in the league this season. The Heat will have struggled on the inside and on the outside. Well, sure, they'll hit a couple of threes, but Philly will do that just as well. So,
While we're still talking about this, I think the fact that Covington isn't listed as both a guard and a forward on the all-defensive ballot is absolutely shameful, and that he should be able to get all-defensive first-team votes as a guard, which is ridiculous.
yeah.
It's kind of off topic.
What I
But
was talking about before, like he can't just be strong to stop a guy like Simmons. Like Justice Winslow is a really high IQ defender, and I think he and James Johnson are going to know, not like just to be able to stop Simmons on drives, because that's probably not going to happen most of the time. They're just going to know how to like handle him when he's trying to do stuff, and they're going to be like meters of space. Yeah. Like if Miami's able to like slow down the game, I think like Funky said this. Like Miami really likes to play like a grit and grind style of play. Like we'll beat you like 89 to 85, and if we can like really slow down the game, it's a lot, and it doesn't favor Philly as much.
And there's always gonna be a game where Wade's gonna go off. It happens every year. So
Avoid Charlotte.
yeah, exactly.
All right. I think we can wrap off about this series. I mean, we can agree it'll be an enjoyable one. Ancient, you still say the Heat, and that's definitely understandable as a Heat fan. But for the 3 others, we agreed on a Philly win. But we'll see how that ends up. So let's now end our discussions about the Eastern Conference with the last series. The Cavs against the Pacers, so 4th against 5th seed. And who do you got winning there?
In my eyes, it's pretty straightforward. LeBron James won't let it happen. That Cleveland loses in the first round. We know LeBron James steps it up in the playoffs. So I have Cleveland in 5.
I had
Um,
originally I thought the series was going to go on for like a decent amount of time, and then I remembered the Cavs Pacers series last year, where we thought was going to go to like 6, and it ended up being a sweep. This Pacers team is really young and actually can become really great in the future with Sabonis and like Oladipo, who's having an amazing year, and young players. It's just that the Cavs are just too good for them. I don't see them doing anything. Maybe take a game at home, but nothing else.
I also have
but
Cavaliers in 5 games. Roster wise, they're just really good. They're more experienced, even though they have young guns. The Pacers don't have that veteran mentality they need, and maybe they snipe a game in Indiana. Oladipo goes off, and Lance Stevenson kind of gets into LeBron's head just for 1 game. But then I know I feel like the Cavaliers are just better in almost every position, and it's not going to be as close of a series as the others.
I
yeah, I
think.
got
Go
Cavs
ahead.
in
Go ahead.
4. Yeah, I got Cavs in 4. I think LeBron obviously always steps it up in the playoffs, but he loves to just like eat the first round, if that makes sense. As Gab said, like with Paul George, we thought it could last a couple games, but LeBron just outplayed Paul George. Even though Paul George did play well, LeBron was just the better player. Like the role players, like Love can just average like I don't know, like 18 and 10 or something. Like if all the role players can do their jobs and LeBron can be LeBron, this shouldn't stretch further than a sweep. Oladipo might go off one time and win them a game. Okay. Yeah, Cavs in 4. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. I don't. I don't see the Pacers winning more than 1 game. They're just too inexperienced. I think Oladipo will go off for 1 game, get the Pacers 1 win at home, like 2-1 or 3-1. But that'll be it then. And LeBron and Cavs will go on the second round then.
We go to the West.
Yeah, sure. Let's start here again with the first seed against 8th seed. So Houston against Minnesota. Who's your pick?
I
Honestly-
have Houston.
Go ahead, Cordy.
All right. I have Houston in 5. Carl Anthony Towns is not a great defender, so Houston will just attack him again and again and again in pick and rolls. The Timberwolves rank near the bottom in defensive rating. They do have Jimmy Butler, who could possibly slow down Harden, but then you still have Chris Paul. So, yeah, Minnesota has no way of stopping Houston.
I don't agree with that. The problem with an ISO-based offense is that there are very little defenders that are actually involved. So it's usually a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, which means that 1 or 2 great defenders can make you be able to stand up to a couple great offensive players. And Jimmy Butler, I'm pretty sure, counts as one great defender. So while the Timberwolves offense, like the Timberwolves defense, hasn't been great this season, I don't think it applies in this situation because the offense the Rockets run is so like rare in the modern NBA when you really think about it. So it depends on how healthy Jimmy Butler is, and it depends on how to defend those pick and rolls. If he's able to do that, then the Rockets have a chance to win. Even though I don't think they'll be able to win a full series, I still think they have a chance because of just the great player.
So what's your prediction?
Jimmy Butler is
Houston
one
6.
of the best perimeter defenders in the game. So I feel like James Harden will kind of struggle in that end because Butler is going to most likely going against him, and the Rockets' offense depends too much on him. Sure, they still have Chris Paul, so that's why I have Rockets in 6. But Carl Anthony Towns is such a polished scorer. Um, Andrew Wiggins has kind of the that Mamba mentality that I think that can step up in the playoffs. Tash Gibson, Jeff Teague, they have, and also Derrick Rose and Jamal Crawford, the fan favorites. So they have a really nice core, deep, more deep than what people think. And even though I have Houston, it shouldn't be an overlooked series.
I think you're underestimating the fact that Houston obviously knows how good of a defender Jimmy Butler is, and they're gonna know how to do switches and stuff, and like get Wiggins and Cat in the pick and roll and out. I don't think there's a very high chance we'll see like Harden on Butler ISOs. I mean, we'll probably see it a few times, but again, Houston is going to know how to get Butler off, and it's kind of like the finals last year where yeah, Minnesota has the offensive firepower to steal a game, but Houston is offensively and they're also a top 10 defense. I think Houston in 5.
Even if Butler manages to stop Harden, there's no one that can stop Chris Paul then. So
The GOAT.
Yeah, I think
There's
also.
no one that can stop Chris Paul, period. QWERTY.
Chris Paul is the best player ever. Fuck off.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, I think Houston 5 simply giving up one game because it's playoffs and refereeing will be less strict, so Harden will get less free throws. I think he'll actually average less points in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. Mostly because of that, he won't get as many calls on three pointers. So yeah, I think Houston 5, not much trouble. But yeah, Minnesota would take a game at home.
I think there's also
Yeah.
a fact that Houston can't afford to lose this series because if they did, they basically like ruined Harden's and Chris Paul's career forever as playoff chokers. Let's like for real. If they make the super team, they win like almost 65 games, and then they lose in the first round to the 1 seed. Like honestly, how bad would that be? Especially with the past they have. I think that's motivation enough to win it.
Yeah, they will be motivated.
Even if Jimmy Butler is really good defensively, he can only guard one of James Harden or Chris Paul at any
Jeff
one
Teague
time.
isn't too bad either of the defenders, so I think he'll be able to manage as as good as you can defend on those incredible offensive players. Yeah,
Talk about the next one.
yeah. I mean, I think we all agree that Houston's gonna advance. Yeah, the next series, which will tip off quite early today, is Golden State Spurs, so second seed versus seventh seed. Who do you think will win this?
I'm watching
do
this.
we know if Kawhi Leonard will return or not?
We
He's
don't know
ruled
if he
out
will
for a game.
return, but he's not playing in the first game.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like Embiid. Embiid ain't playing the first game, by the way.
yeah.
I have Warriors in 6. Considering that Kawhi doesn't come back, as you might know, Kevin Durant is the best player in the world. So it's tough to imagine that he will be
Yep.
out in the first round. The Spurs, as good as Popovich is, they have Lamarcus and then a bunch of good guys, but not any star left. While the Warriors have Durant, have Draymond Green, who I think will provide that mentality of the playoffs. Clay Thompson that hopefully has his games like he's going off, and also young guys like Jordan Bell who should try to prove themselves. So I have Warriors in six, such an interesting series and a lot of questions remaining about Kawhi.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question if Kawhi comes back or not is deciding in many aspects. In If Kawhi comes back and Steph Curry, as he's ruled out for the whole series, won't. Um, I think if Kawhi comes back, the Spurs win. Now, if he doesn't, the Warriors are definitely favorites, but like as a fan, I will still believe in the Spurs, even though they will probably lose.
I agree. Without Curry, the Warriors have not been good at all. So if Kawhi would return, San Antonio will probably win. But assuming he does not return, I got Warriors in six.
Since everyone is saying it depends on Kawhi returning, I'm gonna try to make a case for the Spurs winning without him. First of all, the Warriors have actually been very inefficient without Stephen Curry this season. Like they're only 17-14, which actually would have landed them outside the playoffs this year. Just putting that out there. Or then would actually have gone from the 11th seed.
Because
Second,
they didn't care.
yeah, except for the time when it was like half of that was before the Curry injury.
And that record
Half of that was before they clinched the playoffs. So I mean,
yeah, like around Christmas, and I remember that the record was 9 wins, 1 loss. Like that just
Yeah.
explains that the Warriors without Curry, sure, they lost a lot of offensive flexibility and versatility. Let's call it like that. But
Frank can't
they're
leave the
still really
Warriors.
scary. They have 3 All-Stars, regardless of if you think that they should have been, and they are really good. Right now, sure, they were, as some reports say, they were kind of bored. I don't blame that it was Curry not being. I blame that they need motivation, and facing a team like the Spurs, I'm pretty sure that will bring it.
all right. Secondly, I love how you were mentioning that the fact that they didn't care. Since I'm pretty sure D'Antoni said this a couple weeks back, it's better to be tired than out of rhythm. They haven't been consistently winning games since basically February. By now, they need to get everything their offense back together in an instant. That also plays a factor. Also, do you guys remember how good Tony Parker was in the playoffs last year? There's no evidence that he can't do that this year, especially since he's more well rested and he's not like I'm pretty sure he had been having a couple ankle injuries at the time. If he goes out and averages 20 points per game again, I mean that's already a huge difference in the series.
Are you talking
And
about the
the
guy
I
that's
didn't saw
35?
you.
Man's 35 years old. I think that
last year he was 34 and was then basically like
Yeah.
tore down teams.
wow.
You can go check. Did you watch any Spurs playoff game last year? Probably didn't.
Yeah,
Also,
He was a beast.
The Spurs actually do have the ability to somewhat guard the Warriors because they have a bunch of actually very great defenders. Well, that's not enough to stop them. It's definitely more than basically anyone but the Jazz could do in this situation. And I mean, LaMarcus has been having an amazing year overall. That's star power enough. Plus, I mean, anyone who says who's happy about Warriors winning is depressed because I mean, look at all the memes we could make if KD loses without Curry. Just about it. It'd be like a miracle for Munsters, and I think that should be their motivation.
Yeah.
I just
your motivation are memes, then you're weekly memes.
Yeah, I think
The power of memes.
Durant will definitely be motivated in this series because a lot of people now, because of this end of the regular season, are kind of doubting him leading the Warriors. And so he'll need to prove that in this series. If he loses the series without Curry, a lot of people will blame him.
Then he'll say, "Oh well, I'm no leader. It's all right."
Yeah, as he already did a few times. Also, what is quite interesting is that while Draymond was able to maintain Aldridge last year in the playoffs, I don't think he will be able this time because Aldridge has kind of changed his play style a lot and is getting a lot more physical with the defender. And as he's a lot taller than
It's more like
Green,
physical at all instead of a lot more.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that Draymond Green has a lot of to prove this series. Like the main focal point of the Spurs right now is LaMarcus, and he will be that guy stopping him. So if he's not able to, while he's the reigning defensive player of the year, a lot of pressure can be accused on him.
I just don't see how. I think Kevin Durant could lead the Warriors to a championship by himself, but I don't see
Lol.
them losing in the first round to the Spurs, especially without Kawhi. I mean, Marcus might average 30 and 12, but that's just not going to be enough. And he won't average 30 and 12 because he'll have Draymond guarding him. And like you just need if everyone's hitting their shots for the Warriors, they're just unbeatable. I don't think the Spurs are to beat them. I think maybe they could steal one game, but I think the Warriors will handle the Spurs pretty easily.
I don't know, but easily because pretty much every game between Spurs and Warriors, besides maybe the first one, no, it was quite close with the 3 quarters too. Was close this regular season with or without Curry, and Kawhi was out each game. And like Popovich knows Kerr that well. I mean, Kerr knows Popovich very well too. That like both can very well play against the system of their opponents. And I think it always leads to a very close series because guys like DeJounte Murray, Danny Green, they will all put up some amazing defense too. I don't think any of KD, Clay, or Draymond will have an extremely good offensive series simply because the
Who
whole
could
series will
who
be
could
quite
guard
effective.
Durant though?
Who could guard who?
Yeah, Rudy Gay's not
Who-
going to stop KD.
Kyle
And Danny
Anderson.
Green isn't
Kyle
going to
Anderson.
either.
Kyle Anderson has been playing very good defense this season.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Actually, been getting a decent amount of all defensive play, so I don't think it's fair to say no one can guard KD, especially since KD has actually had against Kyle Anderson in the past because he's such a weird player to play because he plays at half your speed and goes twice as fast as you.
Yeah, defensively, Kyle Anderson is elite, so I'm pretty sure that Durant will somehow find a way to go at him, like Reggie. I don't know, maybe
And they'll probably stick DeHunter Murray on Klay Thompson, who
Yeah.
will also cause huge troubles for Klay because Murray has a really long reach
Yeah,
to contest those trees.
his release.
Are we
is-
forgetting that, like, in the playoffs, in the conference finals, in the game one with Kawhi, the Spurs were like 26 late in the third.
Except
then
here's the
it's-
thing: when you lose your best player mid-game, it's different than when you start without him and had a season to game plan without him. Rudy
But, like-
Gay is a huge addition, which means that they have the firepower on as a small forward. Like the reason they fell apart was also because they had no backup small forward. This year they have Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gay, who are both Kyle Anderson was there last year, but he really stepped up this year, both as a playmaker and as a defender, which means they actually filled that gap almost entirely. Also, DeHunter Murray has made leaps defensively. He's actually a capable starter now, which he wasn't really last year.
He a two-time defensive player of the year. He a two-time defensive player of the year.
But it's still like a huge difference. Also, the last 2 games of that series, the Spurs actually were within, lost both games by combined 15 points, I'm pretty sure. Which means that they actually weren't that far off when they actually adjusted for it, even though LaMarcus was underperforming. So you can't really use something where a team suddenly loses their best player in the middle of a game to compare it to something like that. Because any team that loses their best player in the middle of a game has struggles a lot to close it out. That's just a fact, especially when he's having such a great game.
And
And
last,
Curry
but,
was playing in that series.
yeah,
will run through LaMarcus. I mean, not run through it, but like he will be the main guy. And if Draymond can lock Aldridge up the way he did in 2016,
Double teamed him the entire time.
Maybe.
No,
Like,
you can't
he
fully say they
wasn't
locked him
able
up. They
to
were double
see.
teaming him the whole game, and he
they could do
refused
that
to
again.
pass.
They could easily do that again. What's stopping them from doing that again?
Because this year he actually passes, unlike last year when he was a stubborn dumbass who refused to pass whatever the situation was.
money.
I think we are good for this series. It's quite contested. Some are saying the Spurs will win, some Golden State. So I'm sure we can agree it will be a very good series. Let's just follow on. Third seed against sixth seed. So Portland against New Orleans. What's your guess?
I
Guys?
got Blazers in 7. I think this is going to be a really even series. I think New Orleans is going to have a tough time stopping, especially Dame, but also CJ as the supporting guy. But I think the Blazers are going to have a really tough time stopping Anthony Davis. Yeah, the X factor in this series is Yusuf Nurkic. If he can at least slow down AD and just like if AD could go for like 35 and 15, probably more than that. Slow AD down to what he was when he was with DeMarcus, which is still very good, but it's not like MVP we've seen in the latter part of the season. I think the Blazers should be able to win. They're the better team overall as well, and they're a bit deeper. I think, but it will be a very tough series. I think Blazers in 7.
I think that talent-wise, they're basically the same. They have the Blazers have a superstar in Lillard, such an offensive force, and the Pelicans have AD, who's having a heck of a season. So I think that it will be Blazers just because their coach is better. Terry Scott is a way better coach than Gentry is. So I think that for mid-game adjustments and throughout the series adjustments will make the difference. Either way, it will be a back and forth series.
It's also a lot easier to double team a center than or a power forward than a guard like Lillard
Why?
because
Because their range of motion.
yeah, exactly.
True.
Yeah.
That second guy in CJ to like distract. Like the Blazers will be going all in on Anthony Davis because like who
Drew
else?
Holiday.
Well, that's not fair. Drew Holiday has actually had a really underrated season. Like I'm pretty sure he's had like a 26-4 over a season for a one-man team. It's just that this series very much relies on
Blazers are
Nurkic.
going to be concentrating on Anthony Davis. Like I'm not saying New Orleans is a one-man team. Will be
Not really.
Also,
Lillard isn't that good of a defender, so I expect Holiday to have a really good series where that's in assist wise, passing it to AD. He creates laughs, he creates a space for himself. I mean, we're talking about a guy that barely averaged 20.6 assists, so I wouldn't call the Pelicans a one army team.
I think this is a series that's going to rely a lot on X factors. The first one being Nurkic. How well can he match up against Anthony Davis? Is he going to be able to have the same impact both offensively and defensively that he usually does? One is Rondo. Like, is he going to show up as playoff Rondo like he did last year, or is he just going to like regular Rondo and no one's going to notice him?
I think he seems pretty content with the Pelicans. I think he got his assists quite far up. He's averaging double. I'm pretty sure for the regular season. I think if he can just be, playoff Rondo, good for the Pelicans.
Yeah,
And
Rondo
he's a pretty good
always steps it up in the playoffs, so I don't see why he wouldn't this year. I mean, also with the Celtics, he was stepping it up each year. And also, I feel like while McCollum, of course, the CFL Pelicans, and he might be the better player than Drew Holiday. I feel like Mirotic's impact might be very deciding because offensively he's had quite a bunch of very good games. And in Portland, I don't see that third guy who can drop 22, 23, 25 of a game.
Another player I would like to point out is that the Pelicans have recently added Nikola Mirotic, who's been playing really great for them.
Rocktic.
He's averaging something like 15 and 8, so I wouldn't overlook that either. Sure, AD is the force inside, but Mirotic is also a tall guy who can spread the floor, can get rebounds, and that provides a lot of offensive versatility for them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for me, this series is extremely uncertain, and I have really trouble deciding who I would see winning. I'll still go with Portland for home court advantage, but I think it'll be decided in the game seven.
I agree.
For sure.
All right.
I have Blazers in
Let's,
6.
all right. Let's go on with our last series of this quite long debate now. It's the fourth seed against the fifth seed in the West. So OKC against Utah. What's your guess?
Honestly, this depends on how well OKC are able to play as a team. They've actually been very great against this season. I'm pretty sure they have like a. I'm not sure what exactly the numbers are, but they have a winning record against playoff teams. It's just that Utah have been on fire recently, and I can't see OKC beating.
A lot of possessions, a lot of Utah's possessions rely on Donovan Mitchell, and I don't trust him to provide enough offense for Utah to match with Russell Westbrook. You
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
trust
he's
a rookie to do so much in his first playoff series.
I was gonna say, and I just think, I mean, Melo's the X factor here. Realistically, Westbrook's gonna be Westbrook. Paul George to put him work against the Jazz. Not like 30 points a game, but he should be, if he can be what he was like before the All-Star break, when he was shooting like 45% or something. He needs to be able to hit his shots, because if he's getting exposed on defense and then bricking everything on offense, then that's just going to be a disaster for OKC, and the Jazz are going to have no problem exposing him.
Gobert is God, though.
Yeah, but he can't play out on the perimeter, and a lot of the OKC's offense comes out on the perimeter.
I think
Be
that
like Olympic Miller, like the player he should have been.
Those perimeter defense
Jazz.
has been very good this season.
the Thunder will play as they were supposed to play, and I have them actually in 5, regardless of how good Donovan Mitchell is. Rudy Gobert is obviously one of the best centers in the game, but Ricky Rubio
As in 5.
a playoff game. Donovan Mitchell hasn't played a playoff game, so there we have the backcourt itself doesn't have that experience. Russell Westbrook has it, Paul George has it, and Carmelo Anthony has it. They're right now getting like more meshed. The chemistry is going up. Actually, in the last stretch, Paul George has made more shots. So I feel like the Thunder will surprise and beat them with ease relatively.
I think
I got
it'll
Portland.
be a pretty clear win by Utah actually, simply because, well, a good amount of OKC's points are generated within the paint area with like Westbrook driving, Steven Adams finishing, also Paul George driving, or even Melo trying to score in the low post. And well, you got Gobert in there, but you also got like Crowder to defend, 3, 4 type guys. Donovan Mitchell has proven to be a quite solid defender, and you just got this whole armada of defenders and Quinn Snyder is one of the best coaches currently in the NBA. Like Westbrook will be forced to score a lot more on the perimeter to keep up with his stats, and I just don't think he got the shot right now to keep that up. And I got like Utah in 5 or 6 games.
A key matchup to look out for me is Steven Adams versus Rudy Gobert. And the rebounding, who's gonna win that will be a major factor.
I think Adams will be able to beat Gobert on the boards. I think Adams is a really underrated rebounder because of Westbrook.
Yeah,
And Adams could average like 13, 14 rebounds a game.
Well, I'm
the
not sure about that.
rebounding.
I have this written down as a 7-game series for the Jazz, but also it's not going to be a 7-game series. It's going to be a sweep in one of the directions. I just don't know which one. I can bet this is going to be like a 4-game series in either a Jazz sweep or a Thunder sweep. It's just so hard to tell which one because we don't know how good we're going to be in the playoffs. Both have a lot of because we're both extremely inconsistent when it comes to these kinds of things. I have the Jazz as favorites because defense tends to be more consistent in all sports, but you honestly have no idea how this is going to turn out.
Exactly.
I think it's gonna be closer than a sweep though, because neither Utah nor OKC seem to be the type of team to just give up after 2 or 3 games, and they will probably all go like 120% each game, each minute, and I don't see that type of series going to only 4 games. Anyways, I think we are done with our little playoff predictions. I think we saw a few trends, few series where none of us were really sure how they end up, and we are up for a great playoffs. I think not only the first round, but in general. Ancient, sorry. I think that's it for this podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it. You will be able to find us again each week, always posted on Sundays on SoundCloud and YouTube. All links needed are in the description. And well, until next time, see you.